I had no plans to make a video about Yumori Forest, but once I gave it a shot, I had to. It's one interesting game. But before we get into that, let's chat about the initial problem I had. That the game is too difficult. I was horrified. The enemies were so fast, and with the darkness, how the heck was I supposed to play this? Oh, don't worry. I figured it out, that when the game runs at over 60 frames per second, it moves at super speed. The game speed is tied to the frame rate. Dang! It's annoying when this happens, but if you don't have a high refresh rate monitor, you have nothing to worry about. I had to set it to windowed mode, and then the frame rate went back down, and the game runs much better. Slower, and the combat is manageable. Which is great, because Yumori Forest is fun. The bare visuals with bright pink blood is beautiful. As the Lantern Keeper, it's your job to ignite the lanterns and light up the forest. However, there's a gang trying to stop you. You light up 4 lanterns per level and defeat any enemies that are attacking you. Then you warp to the next area and do it all over again. The gang brings more difficult enemies the more lanterns you light. That's expected. Between levels, there are upgrades you can buy with the berries you pick up, these white orbs that enemies sometimes drop, or you can find them in chests. I think it's a fruit. These upgrades are temporary for the run, and they're basic. You can pick from health, damage, speed, and stamina. Starting off, the combat is tricky since you don't know what the enemies will do. But as you learn, it becomes much easier to expect their movements. They always do the same thing based on enemy type. They're simple. The spear enemies will always dash in a straight line when they attack. Once you get the timing down, it's easy to dodge them. It's like a dance where they attack, then you get an opening to attack. The dance becomes more elaborate when you have many enemies attacking you. Their attack patterns can line up, so it's not that difficult though. And you can strike several enemies with one attack, and that is satisfying. Attacking isn't your only option. You can dodge, throw your sword, and fly. They all use stamina, but you have plenty of stamina since attacking doesn't use any. It's not that kind of Dark Souls game, you know? There's a ton of stamina too, so it's only there to stop you from throwing your sword over and over and over, which would have worked quite well. That would be the best strategy, but also the most boring. Throwing your sword is cool because you can teleport back to it. You don't have to worry about going to pick it up. It's fun to use, but it uses a ton of stamina, and dodging is way more efficient. Flying isn't useful in combat. That's so you can get around the level quicker. If you run into an enemy while flying around, you will take damage. Also, you don't gain stamina back naturally. It only returns to you if you're not in combat. The stamina bar refills once you've taken care of all the enemies attacking you. Keep in mind you are fighting the darkness too. I mean, at least a little bit. Meeting enemies out in the open where the forest is darkest is suicide. Not being able to see enemies wind up their attack animations makes it difficult. It gets better in the long run as you anticipate their attacks and learn the timings, but still not optimal. Such as when the spear enemies attack in their line. If they start in the dark area, it can seem like they come out of nowhere, especially since your zone of light shrinks as your health drops. At first, that's hard to justify, forcing a struggling player into more danger. But as you develop your skill, it's good for keeping track of your health and pressuring the player to use health potions. It would be interesting to play a version of the game without the health bar. You know, so the player has to rely on the zone of light for their health. That seems interesting to me. Anyway, it's best to engage enemies around a lantern. because the area for combat is much larger. Eventually, you can get a permanent upgrade to your personal lantern, but Yumori Forest is fair. I was never blindsided by an attack. Enemies make their presence known before attacking. It's only a problem if you're running away from enemies, or if you don't notice you're in combat. After about 4 levels, you come to a boss. Sorry, I didn't keep count of how many levels, and I forget, but it's like 4 or 5. The boss Tetsu is incredibly difficult. It's where most of my runs ended. I imagine I have the wrong strategy, but if you need some help between runs, you can buy permanent upgrades. For example, damage, inventory space, and a better personal lantern, which I mentioned earlier. Which could mean some grinding. But Yumori Forest feels possible without any of those upgrades, which is important. The boss might be difficult, but it feels workable with the correct strategy. It's possible if you're really good at the game. The permanent upgrades are there for people like me who want to make the game a little easier, which doesn't have the same effect as Rogue Legacy, a game where you're forced to grind upgrades to win. Overall, Yumori Forest is a fun arcade game that's worth your time. I appreciate the minimal look with the limited color palette. It pulls many ideas from other games, but with unique packaging.